Xiefeng, August 16, 2019. Translated by Qinyu and edited by Care. Emotional intelligence refers to a person's ability to control their emotions in dealing with society, nature, and others, as well as having the courage to overcome their difficulties. Even with a high SQ, spiritual quotient, and IQ, intelligence quotient, if one's EQ, emotional quotient, is low, they will be frustrated everywhere in their work and life and will feel like a big fish in a small pond. Even if they achieve great success in their chosen field, they will not be happy and distress will follow them everywhere. Feelings of isolation and loneliness are actually signs of low EQs because those with high EQs never feel that way. Improving one's EQ is tantamount to improving one's happiness index, which is tantamount to broadening one's own path and range of happiness, joy, freedom, and blessing. There are many ways to improve one's EQ. I will only talk about one way, that is, to play your role well. How does one play their role well? Let us examine my own practice as an example to consider. In the past 2 years, I have operated a small inn in BC, Canada. Last year, the guests rated us with an overall score of 8.8 out of 10. So far, this year's score is 9.1. 8 items are scored. The scores on other items might be high or low, but the scores for the owner are almost all 10s. That is, the scores for me are all very high. How do I do this? I entered my role and always played seriously. When I serve the guests, I regard myself completely as a waiter. When they arrive, I run quickly to greet them, regardless of their age or appearance. I open the doors for them and I am attentive at the tables. I brew and pour tea and coffee for them and I toast bread for them. No matter what questions or requests they might raise, I do my best to answer and respond to them as humbly as I can. Even when they are serious, I face them with a smile. When they are about to leave, I wave them off reluctantly and give them my blessings. Recently, an 80-year-old man who came for accommodations told me that a pair of his trousers was soiled and asked if I could wash them for him. I agreed to do so, but after I took out the trousers, I saw that they were stained with feces inside and out, and they really stank. I took the trousers to the lawn, opened the hose on them, rinsed his pants, sprayed them with liquid soap, and finally removed all their stains with a long brush until they were clean. When playing the role of waiter, I never regard myself as the tour guide of life genuine, nor do I regard myself as the messenger of the greatest creator or the incarnation of God, Buddha, celestial, and saints, nor do I think about my achievements in the past. Here and now, I am nothing but a waiter, let alone regard myself as an old man with white temples. To be a waiter, regardless of who you were in the past or what great achievements you have made, just enter your current role and play the skills and qualities required for that role well. 7/10 of the guests I receive are from Europe and a quarter are from North America. They tend to be very picky so that once a problem is found, it will definitely be mentioned on the reservation website and a reduced score will be given. The guests are made up of many kinds of people, but due to my high room rates, most of them are what we call upper middle class. Several unexpected groups have come by, but when they learned about our rates, they left and went to cheaper motels and boarding houses. Therefore, because of our guests' backgrounds, they are picky about their rooms and services, but however picky they might be about my facilities, they are always satisfied with my service, with me. Because I play my role well, I get along well with the guests. Some like chatting, so I join in with them. I joke and talk about everything with my guests with my broken English and throw in some compliments from time to time. Thus we have no barrier getting along with each other. Once there was a guest who, the more we talked, the deeper our discussion became. When he finally left, he specifically left me a business card, and I saw from it that he was a special representative from the UN Secretary General and the head of their mission. Other guests have also left their addresses and contact information when they parted and invited me to visit them. My parents taught me from a young age, do whatever you do like you were playing, which means that regardless of who you are, play your role well. If you are herding sheep, do as shepherds do. If you are a peasant, plant crops well. If you are an official, you should be official. Of course, if you want to be a hooligan, you should strive to be a remarkable, first-rate hooligan. In short, no matter what role you play, you should play it wholeheartedly and play it well. There is a lady in Japan who cleaned airport toilets diligently for nearly 30 years until she finally became a national treasure class person of Japan. The reason is that she played her role well. Those who play their roles well, whether cleaning toilets or exploring alien life, will be happy to take the initiative to do every current thing well and thoroughly. If they are sighing, grumbling, complaining, frowning, or cursing while they are working, there is no doubt that they are not playing their role well. Those who cannot play their roles well cannot be expected to play other roles well either. Those who cannot do simple things well cannot be expected to do complex things well, and those who cannot do small things well cannot be expected to do big things well. Those who cannot play their parts well will have inharmonious relationships with the people around them. First of all, their immediate bosses will definitely not like them and will kick them out at their first opportunity. Secondly, their colleagues will not like them and will be unwilling to interact and work with them. This is a manifestation of low EQ. Even if we have the ability to poke holes in the sky, if our trajectory of life places us in the role of cleaning out cesspools, then we must not resent its being smelly and dirty, but dig out the dung happily, every day. Do not feel that your talents are unrecognized. Do not blame the greatest creator for being unjust, and do not blame the world for there being no wise person to discover that you are a swift horse. The best way to have a bright future is to play your current role well. In this way, your EQ will increase gradually but definitely. Absolutely beautiful things can only be enjoyed by absolutely beautiful lives. If you want to obtain something you desire, the most reliable way is to match your abilities with your qualities. If they are matched, it will come. If they are not matched, you can only sigh. 埋怨抱怨是杀亲杀情杀爱利器. Grumbling and complaining are weapons that kill kinship, affection, and love. Xiefeng, September 19, 2019. Translated by Qinyu and edited by Care. Feeling resentful, unsatisfied with doing things, dissatisfied with your results, negativity, and blaming others is grumbling. Dissatisfaction with the status quo and results, never accepting anything as being one's own fault, but rather blaming other people's faults for causing unsatisfactory results, thus complaining and blaming others and letting them bear any and all bad consequences is complaining. Once you feel resentment in your heart, you will feel that the world is unfair, that everyone owes you, and that you have paid but not received fairly, which makes you unhappy, angry, and wanting to lash out in passive, negative, and pessimistic language, emotions, postures, movements, and the like are grumbling and complaining. The consequences of grumbling and complaining are very serious. To your parents, they can result in your losing their love for you. To your children, they can cause you to lose their filial piety. To your spouse, they can lead to divorce. To siblings, they can cause your relationships with them to break down. To friends, they can cause your loss of friendship with them, even turning it into enmity. To the ancestor of Buddha, the greatest creator, they can cause you to lose your spirituality. To gods, Buddha, celestials, and saints, they can send you into darkness. To superiors and bosses, they can get you demoted or fired from your job. To your colleagues, they can cause you to lose their help when you need it. To society, they can drive you to despair. To spirits, they can lead you to disasters. Therefore, grumbling and complaining are weapons that kill kinship, affection, and love. Besides, they will make oneself toxic and lose their spiritual light, will bury hidden dangers and disasters along one's way forward, will make one lose their demeanor, temperament, morality, beauty, will create countless obstacles and thorns to oneself, and will put one into vicious circles of negativity, passivity, and pessimism which will get worse with time until one's bright future gets destroyed. Grumbling and complaining are very harmful, and they do nobody any good. An ambitious, emotional, and caring person is not afraid of difficulties, hardships, suffering, hard work, facing desperation, or bearing heavy burdens. But they are always afraid of being grumbled and complained at by the people who are closest to them, especially by their relatives and friends. Once they are exposed to these negative individuals, they will gradually lose their confidence and courage, become frustrated, dispirited, lose patience and love. Their soft tempers will gradually become irritable, and they will gradually lose their reasonability. Therefore, grumbling and complaining are crimes. They spoil good atmospheres, bring waves to calm waters, and destroy all good things. Let me give some examples of grumbling and complaining. My parents didn't give me a conducive environment for my growth. Kid, why do you disappoint me so? Heaven is unfair to me. Were it not for you and this family, I would live much better than I do. If there really were a greatest creator, there would not be such cruelty in this world. The reason I was fired was not because I was incapable, but because my boss was short-sighted and failed to recognize my talent. I am sad because the place into which I have poured all of my body and soul offer me no warmth or solace. There is no true love or affection in this world. My mother's door is the only one that is always open for me. Were it not for you, I would not have become so wretched. Were it not for you, I would not have become as evil as I am. Those are some examples of grumbling and complaining. All stylites should rid themselves of their emotions and psychology of believing those ways. Once you stop it and replace those attitudes with affirmations and praises, then all good things will come your way, the rough wind and rain will gradually cease, and the bright sun will shine on the road in front of you. How does one get rid of grumbling and complaining? Remember this Chanyuan value. The world is faultless. All faults lie within us. When you believe that you are treated unfairly, are suffering, overworked, having to overendure, are abandoned by others, are suppressed, or feel unhappy or desperate, remember that none of these things are caused by the injustice of the ancestor of Buddha, the greatest creator, the inaction of gods, Buddha, celestials or saints, the injustice of society, too many bad people in the world, or that others are misunderstanding you. The root of the problem is definitely not in the outside world, but in you, yourself. To understand the deeper meaning of this value, please read the relevant expositions of this in Chanyuan Corpus and Xiefeng Corpus. 给大家讲几个关于幸福的故事. A Few Tales of Happiness. Xiefeng. January 9th, 2020. Translated by Qinyu and edited by Care. It was a summer day in 1979 when I took advantage of my summer vacation to return from Zhangjiakou to my hometown. While on a ferry in the Lujiaxia Reservoir area, I recognized a familiar middle-aged villager from Dazai village. I had been a village official in a group of nearby villages for 3 years and had earned a good reputation in the hearts of the villagers, so the two of us started talking and I asked him about how his village had come along since I left. A few of his words are still fresh in my mind even now. He said, "Things are fine now, we have plenty of food to eat, and if we farmers continue to have enough food for the rest of our lives, then it will be a great blessing." Happiness is so simple. As long as you have enough to eat, you can be happy. It was a winter day in 1981 when Huang and I rode a train from Zhochuan back to our hometown to visit relatives in Linxia. There was no bullet train back then, so we rode on a slow, traditional train which stopped at every small station between Zhochuan and Lanzhou. It seemed to have stopped more than 50 times. As the Spring Festival was approaching, the train would be very crowded, and since it had come from Xinjiang, it was already very crowded when we boarded it. Even the aisles were full. When we got on the train, it was almost impossible for us to move forward, so we just stood still for 20 long hours. I clearly remember how I just wanted to lie down. Even gravel would have felt good. Happiness is quite simple. You will feel happy if you can lie down and sleep on a bed every night, even a hard one. It was an autumn day in 1997, and I was living at number 10 Mount Pleasant Forest Road, Harare, Zimbabwe. At that time, I had registered a company called Golden Crown Marketing, PTE Ltd. I had opened 2 stores 50 kilometers from my home, had traveled between the stores and my residence every day, and was constantly busy from dawn to dusk. I remember telling Huang that people are very happy when they have something to do with their lives, no matter how tired and exhausted it makes them. Therefore, happiness is actually very simple. You will be happy as long as you have something to keep you busy. It was a summer day in 2011 when I was standing on the second floor of the first branch of Lifuchanyuan in Yunnan province, talking and laughing with my celestial brothers and sisters in the courtyard. A sense of happiness arose spontaneously as I understood that people are happy when there are many others accompanying them through their life's journeys. Happiness is so simple. You feel happy when others are with you. It was the winter of 2017 when Huang, Foyi, and I were living in the Pacific island country of Vanuatu. Our hut was only 10 meters from the sea, and even though it was ventilated on all sides, It was very hot and many mosquitoes lingered on all sides. So hot that I could not bear to cover myself with even a sheet, and I was being bitten constantly and mosquitoes would wake me up all night long. Small mice sometimes fell from the roof of the straw shed, but I thought at that time that if one could live in a house that would protect them from wind and rain and could sleep with a quilt at night without being bitten by mosquitoes, that would be a happy life. So, it is not difficult to be happy. As long as you have a room and can sleep under a quilt at night for protection, then you will be happy. An old legend tells of a group of unusual people who all once shared a miraculous power from birth. To contend for survival resources, these unusual people plunged common people into abysses of misery. Eventually, Empress Nuwa drove them into the netherworld. The worst thing about that place was its lack of water. No rivers, no springs, no lakes, and very little rainfall. Those unusual people had to endure thirst for thousands of years. At that time, the greatest hope of the king and his subjects in the netherworld was to get water and to be able to drink big mouthfuls of it. It is wonderful to have plenty of drinking water. Therefore, happiness is to have enough water to drink. To sum it up, happiness means having water to drink, food to eat, a room in which to live, a bed on which to sleep, being under a quilt at night, having something to do, and being accompanied by a group of wonderful people. Today is the first day of winter, and as I look up from my top floor, I see ice and snow everywhere. The sky and the earth have become completely white and Lake Laklahatch is already frozen. Except for some slight noise from vehicles passing occasionally on the Caribou Highway, RT97, no sound can be heard. This is the third winter I have spent in Canada, with last year's lowest temperature dipping to -29 degrees C, -20 degrees Fahrenheit, and the year before reaching -30 degrees Celsius, -22 degrees Fahrenheit. The British Columbia weather forecast shows that this Sunday, January 12, 2020, our highest temperature will be -26 degrees Celsius, -15 degrees Fahrenheit, and our lowest temperature will be -35 degrees Celsius, -31 degrees Fahrenheit. But I am very happy because I always have water to drink, food to eat, a room to live in with a bed to sleep on, a quilt to sleep under every night, something to stay busy with every day. And although I cannot be with my brothers and sisters physically, we accompany each other mentally and spiritually in the virtual world of cyberspace. I am the happiest person in the world. Have you found your happiness? 面对瘟神008情每日祈祷心经 Daily Prayer Against Plague God 008. Xiefeng. January 26, 2020. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. Heaven knows me. All gods understand me. Heaven and earth watch my actions. Though the plague god emerges, I remain at peace. Natural laws show the justice of clear rewards and punishments. Whether I receive blessings or disasters is up to the gods. With no fear for my merits or faults. Neither complaining nor hating, as all result from karma. Even the sun and moon must run along their trajectories. I pray for the greatest Creator's forgiveness. I repent all my faults sincerely and no more wrongdoings. Surely, I will follow you if I can pass through this trial. No more destroying living beings or craving worldly delights. I will treat as I expect to be treated and protect all life. I feel the pain of other beings and revere life. No longer losing my temper, but treating everyone with kindness. Far from anger, taking all things as they are, and following my destiny. Always dealing kindly with predestined relationships, releasing all karma, and defusing all resentment. Neither fighting nor robbing, I will believe in the justice of Tao. Neither stealing nor swindling, I will be frank and righteous. Not involving with illicit sexual relations, I will shield my mind and body with kindness and goodness. I will never have an ego, never bully or control the weak, nor gain extra advantage. I will be just and abide by laws without any desire for that which is not mine. I will never produce impure or poisonous things. I will keep my mind clear and bright and be faithful to my words at all times. I will never gather movable property, but keep my mind clean. Revering gods and Buddha, my path will be smooth and bright. Listening to saints and celestials, adversity will become prosperity. With virtue, my blessings will always exceed my desires. Never again, Will words from my mouth hurt others? No more steps will be taken along evil paths. All of my mind's thoughts will be based on love for all beings. I will conduct myself honestly. Once the roots are established, the path will lead straight. Divine meshes are large, but with no gaps. God shall test my heart and crumble my bones if I do evil again. As I pray more to the ancestor of Buddha, show me pity and keep the plague from my door. I will be righteous as I pray for all gods to bless me. I will observe Life-genuine values and follow the guide's lead, and associate with celestials to elevate my life towards heaven. My heart is now clear, pure, quiet, joyous, and with gratitude and a bright future ahead. 杨改兰无华焰现象给我们的启示 Enlightenment from the phenomena of Yang Galen and Wu Huayan. Xiefeng. January 19, 2020. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Care. Yang Galen committed suicide at the age of 28 after having killed her 4 children. Wu Yanhua, who starved herself as a junior student, was down to only 43 kilograms when she passed at the age of 24. The death of Yang Galen and Wu Huayan is a common social phenomenon. Yet these 2 events were simultaneously extreme and yet typical. In fact, plenty of similar phenomena exist, though we rarely hear of them. Reading the books without words is to read everything, including people, society, and phenomena, so as to gain enlightenment from them. It is the original work without artificial processing from which you can derive the most authentic information and enlightenment of an opening spiritual sense. From their roots, these kinds of tragedies have their own internal causal logic, which can be said to be under fate's control. I do not want to explain this here, lest I appear to lack humanity and sympathy, so today I will simply analyze the external logic of her tragedy. Although the internal causes represent decisive factors in the developments and changes of things, without the activation and catalysis of any external cause, the internal cause can be suppressed or even ultimately transformed. This is like a time bomb. As long as it is not detonated, it will not explode and can be diffused slowly. So, what is the culprit that led to the tragedies of Yang Galen and Wu Huayan? The answer is the traditional life pattern. Yang Galen had to take care of her father and grandmother while raising her own 4 children. Her husband was too honest to make money. Even her relatives, friends, neighbors, and the villagers had their own difficulties and were unable to help her very much. In the end, desperate and with no hope left, she killed herself along with her 4 children. For this, we cannot reproach or blame her. When one is isolated and helpless, what seems easy for most of us becomes an insurmountable chasm or a mountain that is impossible to scale. I can understand her deeply, and I might have taken the same path in a similar situation. Of this, no one would dare to boast. Otherwise, millions of people around the world would not commit suicide every year. Wu Huayan's parents had passed away, her younger brother was young and suffering from mental illness, and she was physically weak. For 5 years, she had only eaten the rice mixed with chili that she could barely afford. At 24 years old, her body was devastated from poverty. Most who encounter such predicaments would simply collapse. Now let us suppose that if Yang and Wu had lived in the new oasis for life created by Life-genuine, this kind of tragedy would never have happened. In traditional families, once the most important breadwinner gets sick or passes away, the family falls upon hard times. Relatives, friends, neighbors, and villagers will only offer slight comfort and give breadcrumbs at most, but they cannot solve their fundamental problem. If such a situation were to occur in the new oasis for life, support for the old, the children's education, and the expenses of everyone's illnesses would be borne by the home so that anyone could get through the difficulties easily without despairing. The working people in China always place their expectations for better lives on wise emperors or clean and efficient governments. This is wrong thinking. For thousands of years, and even into the modern era, tragedies are still happening. Therefore, instead of depending on others and on society, and instead of condemning and blaming the indifferent people and the government, it is better to leave the sea of hardship to avoid tragedies. Anyone can take this road easily, that is, by not marrying, but by incorporating themselves into another mode of production and life in the new oasis for life created by Life-genuine. In this way, they will get another life which can even be said to be a paradisiacal one. The greatest creator, gods, Buddha, celestials, and saints have always cared about everyone, including the workers. They have pointed out a clear path for us and created the most idyllic life mode by which we can all lead good lives. But people neither listen nor follow. This is not because the greatest creator, gods, Buddha, celestials, and saints are merciless, but is because we deserve it. We blame neither them nor society or others. If we want to blame anyone, then we must blame ourselves. We all have our own selfish calculations, and our selfishness decides everything. 如何处理理想和现实之间的矛盾? Resolving the contradictions between reality and the ideal. Xiefeng, December 20th, 2019. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Kair. The reason why I have great trouble is that I have a body. If I had no body, what trouble could I have? Tao Te Ching. Since I have a body, then I also have worries of food, clothing, housing, life, old age, sickness, death, favor, humiliation, panic, fear, and much more. If I had no body, I would have none of these worries. Since ancient times, from the east to the west, from urban to rural areas, domestic violence has always occurred. So how do we prevent people from suffering from it? Legislation, supervision, preaching, intervention, and other attempts have failed to prevent it. Domestic violence occurs because of families. So if there were no families, there would be no domestic violence. Therefore, the only effective solution to avoid domestic violence is to not get married and not form families. If you have no family, you will be insulated from it. How do we resolve the contradictions between reality and the ideal? The best way to resolve it is to have no ideal. With no ideal, there can be no contradiction. The most wonderful sword fighting rule is to use no sword. The most superior mental rule is to have no intention. The best management is to have no management, and the highest ideal is to have no ideal. After determining an ideal, you eventually find that the likelihood of achieving that ideal is next to zero because the vast majority of it cannot be achieved. In this sense, ideal equals fantasy, equals imagination, equals delusion. Ideals are actually harmful. Liu Shaoqi, Lin Biao, Peng Dehuai, and many others' lives did not end well because they were too idealistic. They should have followed the life principle of saints hold the one as the world style. At that time, Mao Zedong was the leader, and they would have moved along smoothly if they had respected him as such, but because of their ideals, they lost everything. There are countless examples of this throughout history. Many prime ministers had great power in their hands, but became overly ambitious and ended up having their whole families executed. There was a college graduate who enjoyed a white-collar job in a big city with a monthly salary of more than 5,000 yuan. One day, he got an idea to buy a nearly 200 square meters house in the city center which cost nearly 3 million yuan with a 900,000 yuan down payment, but he only had 100,000 yuan in his bank account after working for 3 years. How could he buy this ideal house? He borrowed money from everywhere. First, he used the entire 500,000 yuan which his parents had accumulated over their lifetime, and then he borrowed 300,000 yuan from other relatives, friends, and neighbors. After he took a loan of 2.1 million yuan from a bank, he finally bought the house. How did he live afterwards? In order to repay his debts and the loan to the bank, he had to quit his job. How could he earn enough money to pay off his debt and bank loan by working for others? He could not, so he opened his own business. He built a workshop in the suburbs and began blending Wuliangye wine with water and raw chemical materials. He operated his business with a bad conscience. 3 years later, he had paid off all his debts and had his house renovated. Thinking that he should no longer do anything against his conscience, he went to work for a foreign-owned enterprise and became a small supervisor with a monthly salary of more than 15,000 yuan. This gave him enough money to pay the bank every month and support himself well. 2 years later, the price of houses dropped dramatically and his went from the 3 million yuan that he had paid for it, down to just 1 million yuan. Embezzlement at his company was blamed on him, and he was dismissed. With no income, he still owed the bank more than 10,000 yuan each month. He had no choice but to sell his now devalued house. After paying the full value of his house to the bank, he still owed them more than 400,000 yuan. After losing his parents' lifetime savings and all these many years of struggling, his house was gone and he was still strapped with a huge debt. This is what ideals do. If anyone is interested in visiting a prison to interview the inmates and record statistics, I estimate that half of the inmates landed there by their own extravagant ideals. People are most likely to develop great ideals when they are young and good ones when they are middle-aged. They will only see the remoteness of their ideals when they have reached my age. All my life, many beautiful things have come to me accidentally. In Zimbabwe, Africa, I ran a club, a bar, a fast food restaurant, and 4 shops. I also rented a dance hall, a restaurant, and a hair salon. All these ventures were beyond my expectations, but none are within my current range of ideals. I run a small hotel in BC, Canada, and serve guests from Europe, the United States, Australia, Canada, and other countries. The business is pretty good, but I never planned on this as my ideal. Were I asked to leave some advice for future generations, I would implore them to not have ideals. As long as you have none, you will face no contradictions between ideals and reality. If there are no contradictions, you can live a leisurely fairy life. How does one live without ideals? The answer is this: once roots are established, the way will grow therefrom. Cultivate morality, perfect your soul garden, learn and accumulate knowledge constantly, comply with the way of nature, be content with the ordinary, do not contend with others, do what you do every day and do it well, accumulate more blessings, consume fewer blessings, avoid taking the risks of doing things that violate the law, disciplines, and things that corrupt one's conscience. Then leave everything to the management and arrangement of Tao. It is easy to have good relationships with everyone if we want nothing from them. I would not care about the price of wine if I did not drink it. If you have no ideals, then the devil can do nothing with you. You can then keep your mind at ease, and you will then have a good chance of becoming a fairy.